Good morning and welcome to Studio 5 going live. It's Tuesday morning and that's about all we need to know. I'm working on a book at the moment. I thought I might share with you a particular stage I'm at. And I suppose it's what's beneath the leather. This was the original case binding for the book. It's paper and it's one of these generic sorts of bindings which, a lot of books are bound in, makes them very affordable for people. However, I was asked to make a presentation copy for the author, and so I'll show you the stages and how far I've got so far. This is where I've got so far. It doesn't look too dissimilar, does it? I suppose it's all white, but this is what goes on underneath the leather before covering, and it's changed from a case binding where the case is made separately from the text block and then the text block is adhered into the case. With this one here, we've got attached boards, which means that the boards are attached to the text block before covering. So it's an attached board binding. So what have I done to it? Well, I've cleaned up the spine of the book, I've re-rounded and backed it, I've made end papers. So we've got our end papers here as opposed to just plain white ones, something to do about the history of books and that sort of thing. We've got a single needle exposed core sewn M-band, and boards have been attached, spine piece and all sorts of things have also been attached to it. So this is, and we've still got to do a little bit of back cornering, a little bit more sanding on the board to make it uber smooth, but this is basically what happens beneath the leather. The boards that I've used, which is this one here, is a laminate of Manila, a 1mm Gemini board, which is a mill board. It's an acid-free buffered board with watercolor paper put on top. So what I do is I build up the thickness of board that I want, suitable for the book, as opposed to using standard thicknesses and hoping that my shoulders will fit. So I'm very specific in my forwarding. Anyway, one or two other little things happening there as well, but that's, by the by. You notice that the spine has been sanded down, and you can see some of the Manila because the spine piece is a laminate of Manila and watercolor paper, and you can see some of the Manila just coming through here because I've actually sanded the spine area down quite a lot to get it really smooth, but it's also sanded down in this area a little bit more, and that's to compensate for the leather, which is going to be turned in and under, so we don't get it sort of jumping up, so the spine stays nice and flat. So that's what happens. So this is going to be a full leather binding, and I'm going to be using onlays, which I suppose we could think about from the previous going live that I did, which I may have a link to this particular post. Anyway, so what I'm going to be doing, it's going to be a sort of a retro design as such, and the way I'm going to be working is quite simple. I've got my leather, and I've got some Harmattan green leather here. I'm sure it's green 21 or whatever it is, but what I've done is I've marked out where the front board's going to be going, where the spine piece is going to be going, and of course the back board, and that's going to give me some idea, and this is going to be ready for pairing the edges and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But with the design, what I do is I've got a bit box. I've got many bit boxes full of leather actually, and what I do is for the design I will be laying on various pieces of leather to get my design how I want it to be. So what I want is I want something that's going to be a little bit sort of jazz-y inspired, sort of got a 1950s sort of feel to it. So what I do is I get my pieces of leather and I begin to move them around to get the correct position that I want them before I even start thinking about pairing or the technique I'm going to be using, so that I can actually formulate the design, if you like, on the canvas of the leather. It's a very simple technique, and it's one of the techniques that I use, and it means that you can go away, have a cup of tea, come back, have a look at it and think, okay, yes, I like those colour combinations. Now I can work with the shapes and see what's going to be physically happening with the leather. Though I'm using Harmattan leather mainly, of course there are other leather suppliers out there, and in fact I will be using leather from about 3 or 4 different suppliers on here. Again, slightly different textures, slightly different feelings, slightly different grains and things happening as well as the covers. So before I even think about getting the leather on, I'm thinking about the design so that we end up with a whole and complete book. Anyway, this is a very short going live from Studio 5. I hope everybody has a really, really great day and that we're all happy. Anyway, This is Studio 5 going live. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Bye-bye.